which allowed him to play another giant, but he'd only have the one taunt still. And still, no way to gain life in ElkY's hands. So even if he does get a good board full of taunt minions, it's unlikely he can survive if ElkY's able to pop his block.
Yeah, I mean, ElkY has to top deck. Like, if he doesn't top deck, then it's over, basically.
But the thing is, he's limited with what he can draw, too, because Alexstrasza would be too expensive the following turn.
Right.
So he would need to get the heal bot or a second ice block to stay alive.
What's also really interesting is that, I mean, ElkY can actually produce 4 taunted molten giants, but he cannot save himself. Yeah, so that's... I mean, it's not about the board here, but...
All right, so ElkY chooses to go for the most taunts possible, but that doesn't matter because Daniel can still burn through it. Trying to wave over to nervously pass the turn, but Daniel is determined to pop the ice block this turn.
And we do see both copies of Kill Command in Daniel's hand. He can fire one off at ElkY's face, use his hero power, pop the ice block at 2, and ElkY's going to need to find some form of heal in order to survive, despite having an army of Molten Giants with taunt. He could also potentially find a second copy of Ice Block that could buy him enough time, because he's actually going to be able to attack for 18 damage this turn.
Yeah, that's primarily it. And even if he got like Sciences, for example, that wouldn't be enough. Lotheb.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Lotheb not able to do it, though. He still needs to heal. Even just the hero power kills him.
Yeah, the hero power goes past every single taunt here. And ElkY's caught in a classic struggle against hero power versus what else he can do.
If he were just at 3 life, he would actually potentially be able to win this game with that Lotheb, but he is just 1 too few life, and he's going to put out an absolute army of giants, but they cannot stop Steady Shot.
He's well, he's going to really hope for some user error on Daniel's side. Think maybe he'll forget the hero power, but I don't think that's the case at all.
And ElkY concedes. Daniel Negreanu is going to go up to a 2-1 lead over ElkY.
And that's definitely really good for Daniel. You know, he never hit Legend. He's only hit rank 5. Due to, I guess, time constraints and plus, you know, newness to the game. But ElkY, he's hit Legend multiple times, so he comes in here as a player trying to defend his honor, making sure that he can live up to his reputation.
Yeah, and he did have, you know, a deck there that struggled quite a bit with what Daniel was playing there. He needed to find, you know, something more to actually regain his life there. Perhaps if he had found a heal bot, things might have been a little bit different. But as it stands, Daniel is 1 game away from winning this exhibition match.
Yeah, I think it's really dangerous again because this Druid still remains, and so the Druid goes up against the Mage. That'll be really tricky, and we don't even know what Warlock it is either. If he chose Handlock, then he's in really big trouble because the Druid will put a lot of pressure on both these classes.
I hope it's Dreadsteed.
Dreadsteed Warlock, that's pretty awesome. Have you got a chance to play Dreadsteed Warlock at all, Life Coach?
Which one?
A Dreadsteed type Warlock.
The Dreadsteed. Oh yeah. No, actually, like I think it's so bad that I didn't even try it.
Oh, how do you know it's bad if you haven't even tried it? Because you played against it a couple times.
No, I mean, there are decks and decks, so some decks they are with weird cards, and sometimes it could be a thing, so perhaps you have to try it first.
Sure,
for example, with this stuff which gives you like 10 mana. What is it?
Astral
Communion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Communion. Yeah, I tested that, and like after 5 games, I found this not being like anywhere good. But like stuff like Dreadsteed, I don't think you need to waste your time to test stuff like that.
All right, well, harsh words from Life Coach to all the Dreadsteed fan players there, but don't worry, his time will come. In the meantime, game number 4 is about to begin. One more time, we'll try and see if ElkY's Mage can turn around, but if he drops to the Druid, that is it.
Ooh, Daniel with some interesting cards in his opening hand. Kel'Thuzad, a you know, powerful late game threat, but not necessarily what you're looking for here. Here, I think Daniel's looking to pressure ElkY as quickly as possible.
It's not just any Kel'Thuzad, it's golden Kel'Thuzad.
Oh, yeah.
So you had to craft it manually from the adventure set.
Do you think this is perhaps the reason why we see him in the deck?
Maybe. Yeah,
he's so shiny.
It is pretty amazing if you have it synergized with some taunt minions that just keep coming back, like Sludge Belcher, for example.
Speaking of taunt minions, it's a giant hand of taunts from Daniel. He chooses to innervate out that Sludge Belcher, though he does have pretty much nothing but expensive minions left in his hand. Gonna give ElkY quite a bit of time.
Yeah, ElkY would love the amount of time that he could have. Echo Mage is one of the best at winning long games of attrition. And the reason why we're saying Druid was a big threat to this type of mage deck was because the normal Druid, which is very fast, that has 2 versions of Force of Nature Savage Roar, they're always threatening to potentially just pop your Ice Block, and you don't have the way to catch up against on the board the way you would like to before you die.
Well, actually, it's like already enough if you only place 1 combo, because like the Echo Mage doesn't have any tools without the Giants to ever outvalue the Druid, which means like if the Druid simply let the Mage stay at 21 life, he can never drop anything, which is basically also the key to this matchup. I mean, I don't know whether Daniel knows, but it's like if you simply let the Mage above 21, it's unlosable.
Sure, that's also a good point, because then Molten Giants and duplicates and all those echoes don't actually happen on the Molten Giants themselves.
Daniel has seen ElkY play this deck twice now, so he is certainly aware at least of the presence of Molten Giant in the deck. So we'll see if he does make the sort of play adjustments in order to play around that possibility.
All right, well, the Doomsayer to preemptively address the board, both on this turn and the next one for Druid. And he does pick up Keep at the Grove. Is this a time where he can afford to let that slide, or do you think it's more important that he preserves his board right now?
It's kind of an interesting spot. He does have just a fairly weak board. It could save this for a future Doomsayer, could potentially save this for a taunted Giant, for instance. But he does choose to silence the Doomsayer and ensure that the end is not, in fact, coming.
No, and that's really good, because the Druid needs to keep this momentum. Even if it doesn't have the Force of Nature Savage Roar, you can threaten it against your opponent to make them really scared.
One interesting thing about silencing a Doomsayer in this matchup, because ElkY is playing with Echo of Medivh, he can possibly just reload a second Doomsayer off of a copy of Echo of Medivh, despite the minion in play not actually having any abilities.
That is true. And it's not like you can kill off a Doomsayer anytime soon, right?
Yeah. I mean, it would cost Daniel 7 damage in order to do that, but he decides to just send 6 damage to ElkY's face.
He's not afraid.
No, not at all.
Because he does have the big game hunter, so maybe feels like he can deal with one of the Giants.
So this is ElkY in an interesting position here. He's facing down quite a powerful board without really all that many strong plays of his own this turn.
Yeah, that's right. This is, I mean, it feels like it's okay if he plays slightly defensively. He still has to figure out ways that you would win, because one of the drawbacks of playing Healbot, for example, is if you're that much farther away from Molten Giants, which you do want to inevitably be a threat. And he also coins and hero powers, so that way, in case his opponent dealt with the board already, with Swipe and hero power, for example, he could Flame Strike the next set of minions down.
He does have that Flame Strike waiting, but Daniel has a variety of minions that he can choose to play, none of which are particularly vulnerable to that Flame Strike.
No, Ancient of War is one of the most resilient minions in the game against Flame Strike.
He is quite large. Ancient of War. Uproot? No, disappointed.
It would survive a Flame Strike.
It would. It would.
Back over to Team ElkY here. I mean, has this developed enough where maybe he can start swinging back the game, or do you think Druid still has too much initiative left, Coach?
I mean, it's an interesting point, right? I mean, the Druid is also a little bit like with Kel'Thuzad, things are changing. So, what is with the polymorph? Do you think he will polymorph the 5/10 taunt? I mean, it's juicy, right, to do that. But if he does it, then if he cannot also handle Kel'Thuzad, he will probably pose quite a threat.
That's right. He'll never be able to get to Kel'Thuzad because the Sludge Belcher will keep spawning slimes, and not to mention he'll keep coming back.
So ElkY it has a lot that he has to deal with right now, and the threat of Kel'Thuzad looming in Daniel's hands certainly does not make it easier. ElkY doesn't know that he's going to have to deal with that, and uses his polymorph to take down the Ancient of War. As Life Coach said, a very juicy target. Daniel applauding.
I believe he's applauding himself for forcing his opponent to play exactly the way he wanted to. He's like, yes, you polymorph that and not something else. Like my Kel'Thuzad coming down, ElkY can't deal with it. And that is going to be problematic, to say the least.
And yeah, ElkY now needs to... he does fight Frost Nova, but no Doomsayer.
ElkY is like, not like this, please. Not like this.
Well, let's actually hear if ElkY has anything to say. He's been relatively quiet. Maybe he has got a few words for Daniel.
Oh, so sick. So far, I like the way things are going right now. will show them all!
But ElkY always has tricky plans. Hey! Not very nice. Let's see.
Of Medivh into Frost Nova and Doomsayer. Like
Decisions,
everything. And as we
decisions.
see, like, there wouldn't have been a handle. But okay, this is because we see the hand, but I think perhaps in those situations you have simply to hope for the best. Oh, we see a 5-2, what is it? What is it called?
That's a Druid of Flame.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a lion.
It's a card that we saw before. As it looks like it's a card that used to be used as a 2/5 minion to try to handle some aggro, but he's using it here very aggressively as a 5/2.
Yeah.
It looks like that it would have charged, but it simply doesn't. So.
It looks like it does a lot of damage to my face, which I don't like. It's also stat for stat equivalent to an Ice Rager.
It is. It is the.
Was it, by the way, already nearly over?
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's going to be tough for ElkY to come back here. He has that second Doomsayer that he just found, but no way to freeze Daniel's board right now.
No, I think it's simply over, right?
right? Because it's not Ice Block, and any minion that he kills actually comes back because of Kel'Thuzad. Because like you can't actually deal with this legendary minion which keeps spawning other ones.
Didn't
yeah,
find a
there's also
secret, so this very well
right.
could be Ice Block here.
Okay.
So may not quite be over for ElkY, but he's definitely on the ropes.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel will have to make sure that he makes the right play, but even if he played it really safe, it's still the question, wondering, like, can ElkY deal with this Kel'Thuzad?
So we do see Duplicate giving a couple more copies of Doomsayer to ElkY, but he does not look like he is likely to have the time to use them.
Now let's pick up another Frost Nova, in which case that would potentially flip this game upside down with the Echo and Frost Nova Molten combinations.
If he is able to find something like Frost Nova, perhaps a Blizzard, some way really to just keep Daniel's minions at bay.
It would have been nice, like, to sacrifice the Sludge Belcher, perhaps, because, like, if you sacrifice Sludge Belcher, you would have get the exact same copy and another minion. So
There's Frost Nova. Oh, ElkY finding exactly what he needs. He can actually play the Molten Giant, Echo, Nova, Doomsayer, or rather, Molten Giant, Doomsayer, Nova, Echo.
You could, if you really feel like you just want to cash in onto the board and really get as many cards as possible. The one thing that I was counting was making sure that he didn't overdraw.
Oh, it looks like he might do just that. Well, this does make it so that if Daniel has a silence effect, that it's more likely he's able to actually ensure that the board does get wiped.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's going to echo this board, and that's a lot of Doomsayers if he's going to commit to this.
I think he wants he actually can't echo and Nova. He actually is out of he doesn't have quite enough mana.
Oh yeah, you're right. That was probably a consideration as well. He's going to drop one more Doomsayer just to see if he can permanently wipe this board off the face of the planet. And the way the Doomsayers trigger is that the slimes will be remaining after they die anyways.
does he overdraw, by the way, if he doesn't drop the Doomsayer?
I believe he has 10 cards in his hand.
I believe you are correct as well. I'm counting. There should be 10 cards.
So I believe Daniel actually has the damage to remove both of these Doomsayers and break the ice block fairly easily.
That's right, and that's really big because then you still have the option of keeping your board, and you're not worried about your opponent like Alex Straussing you back up.
So ElkY's ice block is broken.
Uh-oh. Well, I mean, I think Daniel is on the verge of securing his victory. The only thing is he doesn't have direct damage from the hand, but I don't know if he necessarily needs it because outside of this one Frost Nova, how do you stall another turn against this kind of board?
I mean, he does have the Frost Nova. He could Frost Nova potentially with the Doomsayer this turn. Potentially even play, and with Daniel playing the Ancient of Lore, he actually can't play a potential Keeper of the Grove or something to silence a Doomsayer. Oh, burns Molten Giant. That's got to hurt for ElkY here. He knows that this Molten Giant in his hand is the last one he will have besides ones that might get echoed or duplicated. But he's able to get this Doomsayer down, and I think Kel'Thuzad may finally die next turn.
Daniel could just draw 4 damage from the hand in a swipe and end this game. But he
drops the
does
heal
end up
bot,
dropping the heal bot.
Keep himself at a right. We see Daniel laughing. He's like, oh, I can't even do anything.
That's right. Although the problem still remains is he can't necessarily kill KT just yet.
Well, Kel'Thuzad will die to the Doomsayer.
Oh, you're correct. I'm sorry about it. I just completely forgot about the Doomsayer being played on board.
So everything dies except for these 2 slimes. And now, suddenly the game is back to being a bit less one-sided. ElkY potentially able to drop this Giant, maybe pair it with Duplicate to give him, or even the Echo to give him some additional possible threats.
Yeah, and with the ability to at least echo one of the Giants, he still has a lot of firepower because Daniel used one of his big game hunters. I'm not sure if he runs 2.
Yeah, Daniel's deck a little hard to guess what we might see next. He's playing a very taunt-heavy defensive Druid deck, not really akin to the ones that most of the players are playing in the World Championship.
Are the secrets, by the way, out already? Like, there are no secrets in the deck left? Or what do you think? Like, because of the Mad Scientist? Like all secrets has been drawn already out. So I'm just wondering like what ElkY's hand is consisting out of. It's like 1 Molten, 1 Alex. But if Daniel simply handles those threats, which he can probably do, especially with his high damage composition or with his high curved druid, then ElkY would simply run out of cards, right?
It's entirely possible.
It's true. It is interesting that ElkY also chose to play Alexstrasza without playing his own Molten beforehand.
Yeah, he had the opportunity to play the Molten for 1 mana and then Alexstrasza himself.
I think if he wants to surprise his opponent, then it definitely will be off of Daniel's mind because that was an opportunity to play the Molten.
The Molten Giant was actually from Echo of Medivh, so right. I believe that Daniel should have full knowledge of the fact that it is in ElkY's hand.
Okay, well...
I think the plan is like that ElkY realizes that his deck doesn't have enough value to be Druid at all, so he takes the gamble and tries to Echo of Medivh the Molten Giant later, in combination with other cards. But, I mean, once, like, he could, of course, perhaps, like, Echo the Doomsayer, but that's of no value, or the Mad Scientist, but he's also of no value. I mean, we talked about that, right?
So Flame Strike clears Daniel's board, gives a little bit of a respite to ElkY with the Zombie Chow Death Rattle, bringing him back up to 18 life. He did have to play that Molten Giant first, or else the cost of the Molten Giant would have been increased as his life went up.
Well, now Daniel has an opportunity to remove the Alexstrasza pretty easily with that cheap Wrath.
Yeah, and it's 0 where, like, ElkY cannot do anything against it, right? Or does he? I don't think he has a handle. So Izero will at least take 2 turns on the board, which is really, really huge.
Yeah, and another thing, too, is that ElkY used both of his Moltens up, which means that he's running a little bit low on the threat side outside of this Emperor, and maybe he has, like, a Sylvanas in his deck as well.
So this Sylvanas also really threatening against the Molten Giant. If Daniel is able to steal Molten Giant, will make life quite difficult for ElkY. And it's also just a threat that he needs to try and deal with as well.
Well, Healbot draws for ElkY just makes him further away from the combination of Force Nature Savage Roar, if that's exactly what Daniel is holding. So at least ElkY has that as a sanctity of mind. Say looking at here, though, he can maybe try to set up that the Giant will get as much value as possible, setting up for an Echo, perhaps. But is he afraid of dying to, you know, his opponent's burst pop potential, which he might even question now that he's seen Kel'Thuzad and Ancient of Wars and Senjin Shieldmaster?
Yeah, it's also funny with the Thaurissan because of the Sylvanas, ElkY can actually not play Thaurissan and Echo of Medivh. So it basically blocks in his turn too, which is quite huge.
He can potentially play perhaps Healbot, maybe Doomsayer, and then attack into the Sylvanas, give him a couple of things that are fairly weak, but no, he's just going to give him the Giant and then shoot it down with his own BG.
And then play Emperor Thaurissan, try to use whatever he has. Oh, he's afraid of dying potentially to a Force Nature Savage Roar, so instead he goes for the Healbot.
Okay. Izero still would stay 2 turns, so...
Yeah, Ysera is still very problematic, considering that ElkY already used one of his polymorphs, and Daniel would have Ysera just gathering cards.
Looks like Daniel is debating if he wants to attack one of the minions. He wants to perhaps play the Zombie Chow into this board. He does have 2 mana left over thanks to the cost reduction on that Ysera.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, like, yeah, I mean, the Zombie Chow has to come down at some point, right? I mean, we saw him staying in the hand for the for the last few turns. But I guess on the board, he's simply stronger than in the hand.
Yeah, and then Ysera picks up Dream. Not really the strongest thing for Daniel here, though it can potentially allow him to answer some large minion without having to sacrifice any of his board for at least a turn.
Yeah, but this is a really powerful echo of Medivh, because you're going to reduce all of those cards cost by 1 from the Emperor Thorson itself.
So there is still a secret in ElkY's deck, perhaps the second copy of Ice Block.
Yes, most likely there. And he is going to go up to 30 health, and Druid, without the Force of Nature Savage Roar, is going to be struggling to put the final points of damage on. So, you know, even though he does have Ysera on the board, does Daniel have enough to close this game out?
I think ElkY will simply run out of cards eventually. As we saw, like, the duplicated cards were all, like, of not big value. Big Game Hunter, I mean, there's big in the name, but he's not big value in this match. The same goes for the Healbot and for the Mad Scientist.
Yeah, this Ysera is going to continue providing Daniel with resources that will give him additional value as the game progresses. So ElkY really needs to deal with it fairly quickly.
I don't think he can, though. Again, there's no real direct removal for the Ysera, and he has to generate 6 more damage from the hand to just kill it.
Right.
And a lot of times these decks, these Echo Mages, might not even run fireballs or other ways to directly remove it just damage-wise.
And we have seen him already play a copy of Polymorph. So if he has a second one, that's really what he's looking for here. He could try and hide a Doomsayer behind a Sledge Belcher. Though we know that Daniel has that copy of Dream in his hand, which could make any taunt really unreliable.
Yeah, and then he had this dancing game of like, well, the board tension keeps building, but Doomsayer never gets to trigger, and therefore he might even answer it the moment you can secure it. ElkY gonna play a duplicate to hopefully force his opponent to attack into the Sludge Belcher and duplicate it, but then if Daniel sees that opportunity, he might dream and force a copy on something like a Mad Scientist. And, you know, Mad Scientist being duplicated is not what you want to say.
Not at all. Especially when you're so far into your deck that you've likely played all of your secrets.
Yeah, I mean, the Dream here is, of course, very strong now. I mean, especially if you can use it against Belchers. I mean, Ysera is simply drawing one big Ysera Dream card every turn. It's just so, yeah, it's just amazing if you have her on the board.
Yeah, the Shade continues to grow as well. Innervate, not what Daniel was looking for, but...
Probably the most useless draw you can have on top of his deck. But he sees the Dream, and that's not going to make ElkY happy at all. Whatever Daniel kills next will duplicate, whether Big Game Hunter or Mad Scientist.
It looks like he may be attacking into the Big Game Hunter first. Does give ElkY 2 more copies of Big Game Hunter. Not much big game in his deck, however, so not much for him to do.
Unless he uproots this, there's nothing really you can target it.
I don't care that you just duplicated Big Game Hunters. I want it uprooted.
That would be for the ultimate BM. I would love that. ElkY, by the way, in danger of just dying next turn. Not only does Daniel have the potential lethal with whatever he draws, but he has that Nightmare as additional bonus damage.
Yeah. And the cheap thing that Daniel was talking about in a previous game off the top of the deck for ElkY, not really so effective against a board full of large minions.
Not at all. ElkY needed some Frost Novas, something to stall. I mean, he will be staying alive essentially by playing another Antique Healbot and a Sludge Belcher.
He can stay alive, but he's not really making any headway toward actually being in a winning position in this game.
True.
Daniel did pick up an Emerald Drake off of Ysera last turn, which not match up well against those 2 Big Game Hunters, but it's not looking like he's going to need too many more Dream cards to close this one out.
He might just need raw damage and a target for Nightmares to be received, and then he can just end the game right there.
I believe ElkY does have the Ice Block most likely as his remaining secret. So if Daniel does sort of go all in with Nightmare here, it could end poorly for him. But even then, I feel like he's going to have some large threats left over. Wild Growth, that's gonna find him a new one.
That's right. Wild Growth will draw him an additional card, even though there's already maxed out of mana crystals. That's the way you can use it late game. And he picks up Silence, drew the Claw, is helpful to help him clear the Doomsayer efficiently, so he doesn't have to use too many resources. But I guess he could still do that and play Emerald Drake and Druid the Claw simultaneously because he has Innervate.
Yeah, he could just use his hero power and the Shades to clear the 7 health from the Doomsayer, so the end will not, in fact, be coming. He could also choose to charge the Druid of the Claw, but he has the Innervate, so he could go to the full 10 mana here if he really wanted to. Not really anything to do with all of that, though.
I mean, we were laughing at the 2 BGHs when we saw them, but as a matter of fact, the one BGH will target the 7/7 Shade, and the other BGH will target the Emerald Drake, so they will have their use.
Oh, wow. Daniel chooses not to kill the Doomsayer, just pushes damage to face, cracks the Ice Block. And it looks like he was hoping that was something else, some other secret, but...
So he thought he may have had lethal.
Oh, but he may just next turn anyway.
Yeah, Ysera Awakens is 5 direct damage to everybody that's not named
But
Ysera.
ElkY has the heal bot. ElkY goes back up to 9. You see, roll of his eyes from Daniel.
No worries, because I have a feeling Daniel could still just draw lethal off the top. Just needs anything that does 3 damage.
And
The Ice Block was a
swipe.
Swipe is
That
enough.
is it. Ysera Awakens, 5 damage, clear the board, swipe to ElkY's face, and Daniel Negreanu is going to win our show match.
Oh, ElkY is crushed. He says, no! You were the one that's supposed to wear Neutron cosplay, not me.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what ElkY's Sledge Belcher costume ends up looking like. That's a really difficult one to cosplay.
Yeah, that's going to be one for the ages. Congratulations to Daniel Negreanu. He won our best of 5 exhibition show match between 2 poker players. So what do we think? What do we think about their first year essentially competing on the big stage of Hearthstone?
I mean, I think they both played well. I thought it was cool that they brought some interesting decks. You know, the Echo Mage deck from ElkY. You know, we got some cool things happen. Didn't work out for him very well, but it was definitely fun to see.
Yeah, definitely. Especially like I liked when Daniel went full face and then the Ice Block popped off. I mean, he already saw the Ice Block, but there was like a pure surprise and then some realization that he saw that before, I think. So like, oh damn.
Yeah, so you know, some fun moments, some memorable moments, and Rachel is down with Daniel to get a few words to see what was some of his favorite moments during that match.
Thank you so much, guys. I am here with Daniel Negreanu and ElkY, and oh my, I have seen a lot of Hearthstone matches, but I've never seen someone so sad to lose, and I've never seen someone so excited to win. Daniel, talk to me about this match against ElkY.
I was so nervous. I play poker for millions and millions of dollars, and I'm cool as a cucumber. But I was like, my blood was flowing. This is like my new passion, right? So, you know, having a chance to win as an underdog, like, he's got more experience. I mean, I honestly didn't think I was going to win. I'm just ecstatic that I did.
Well, ElkY, we definitely saw the stone-faced professional poker player at the table today. What was going on behind the glasses?
It was really hard because actually the Echo Mage deck I played, I didn't play it much before, but I practiced like a lot last few days, and then like there's some situation where I clearly made mistakes and it kind of cost me the game, I think, because like it was like kind of like a surprising deck if you didn't play against it, but it never really turned out that well. And some games I had outs and I didn't draw them, and some other games I misplayed, so it kind of sucked actually.
Well, that was a tough one. I have to say, Daniel, you really put your heart and soul into it. And as someone who is a golden mage, I find it a little surprising that you didn't know the name of Polymorph.
Oh, I knew. Did I say polymorph wrong?
Oh, I just heard the sheep card, the sheep card.
Oh, no, the other sheep thing. The one that's like, does deal 2 damage to everyone.
Oh, the explosive sheep.
That annoying little sheep, yeah. Yeah, that one. I hate that one.
Well, I hear that you guys had an agreement going into this, and I don't think you're going to be able to get out of it. So, ElkY, tell me, what exactly does this mean for you?
I'm going to have to play as a Sludge Belcher at the PCA, so that's going to be pretty hard. I guess you can go eat something now to like ease the pain.
I cannot wait to see this. Now, I have to know, what do your poker friends think of this Hearthstone passion that you have?
I think they really loved it. Like the excitement was really big in the poker community. So, and actually, I told them to bet on me, so I kind of feel bad now.
Sore advice. But Daniel, you said that this is your new passion. So, do you think next year we might see you on this stage of the Hearthstone World Championship?
I know how much dedication it requires to get to the absolute, you know, the World Championships. I don't know that I have the time for that, but I'd love to. I'm still learning. I've been playing for 6 months. Apparently better than this guy, though, right? He's been playing for years. Right? And I'm just happy to, like, most of us in the poker community, he mentioned, they were talking about it on Twitter and social media, and they all wanted to bet on that guy. So actually, I'm not sorry to disappoint. I'm very happy to.
Well, congratulations to you both. You put on an impressive show, and I hope you join us once again on a Hearthstone stage in the future. And folks, that's not our only exhibition today. Up next, we have our Challenge Stone show matches. And I'm excited to see which of my fellow broadcasters are going to take the win, especially because they have been arguing about this. I'm not joking, since it was announced. So please stay tuned, we've got more coming up, but now let's take a look at our Windows 10 DVR replay.
The 2015 World Championship Series.